Hey, I got something to say. What a day. Where I am in the suburbs of Philadelphia, it's 63 degrees. Yes, it's winter, but it's 63 degrees and sunny. And on this sunny day, I get to bring in one of my gal pals, a friend I met through one of the women organizations, whether it was Fem City or Walnut Club. Shout out to both of them. And we've been wanting to come together for so long, and our schedules. I get to bring in Stacy Forchetti. Woo! The girl is on the ball, baby. She is in the house. I can see it. Woo, Stacy! I was just bragging that we had the best weather here today.
It's gorgeous.
Isn't it?
It's unbelievable. You
You
know,
look glowing, by the way.
global
You look
warming be
glowing. Were
damned, I
you just
guess.
in Florida or something?
No, it's just great lighting. This is my window seat
Uh,
where I'm surrounded
Of
by all
course.
my
All right.
books.
We're going to get into your book soon, but let me tell them a little bit about you. Stacy is a family law attorney, former prosecutor, and I know this for sure, endlessly curious girl. She serves on the boards of 3 organizations dedicated to improving people's lives, be it through fostering stronger connections, offering new experiences, or solving, Lord have mercy, cold case homicides. We'll get into that later. Stacy seeks to learn more always in both her law practice and her parenting. I love this. Her goal is to teach people not to need her, to help others grow into their best selves. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you. That was
I,
a really nice
I'm
intro.
loving it. The only thing I'm sad about is I can't be next to you and give you a big moochy hug, but this will have to do for now.
Next.
Right. All right, so
Yeah.
Stacy, let's get into it. Just for those of you who have not been following, I always ask the women around the world, if you had one positive thing to say to women and the men listening, what would that statement be? And then we're going to build on it. Stacy chose, we choose how and where to direct our energy, which has a profound impact on our lives. Now, Stacy, I cannot tell you how many conversations we've been having about this recently, even with people that practice this. They feel like lately they're getting banged around like a ping pong ball, like they go out with intentions and then
Sure.
all of a sudden this happens, that, and this has happened in the world, and it's like, woo, woo, woo. What do you do to recenter yourself? I'm getting tons of questions coming in. How do we redirect our energy? I'm having a rough time.
So I think one of the best ways is to think about, every day you're given the opportunity to have positive or negative impacts on other people's lives. You can either make someone's day a little bit better or a little bit worse. Just by how you reply to a text, you know? So when you're having a negative day, I think choosing to direct your energy towards something positive can help you a reset. And just knowing that, the more energy you give to something, like the more time you spend dwelling on like some negative customer service interaction you've had, like the larger that thought grows in your mind. Like if you think of your brain, and it's funny that I'm about to use gardening metaphors because I hate gardening. I really do. I don't have any patience for it. But it's very effective here to think about, your mind like a garden, and the plants that grow the biggest within your thoughts that grow the biggest are the ones you give the most attention to.
I love gardening, so I'm really happy that you use that metaphor. And it's true. If I sat there all day long and just picked weeds, I'd be so sad. All right, so I need to get into this. Here you are.
So reading is an excellent metaphor. you know, you need to kind of weed like the garden of your
To
mind.
let the flowers come through. A little bit of balance. I do a little weeding, a little planting. A little weeding, a little planting. So, Stacy, this is tough what you do. Family law. I mean, how do you not want to bang your head against the wall every day? Or are you making such a big difference in their lives that it makes up for the days that are frustrating?
Well, look, I mean, obviously, lawyers get involved when there's a problem, right? You know, so people hire me to help solve their problems. So they're usually at a negative point, a low point in their lives. And just like when I was a prosecutor, I always aim to be like a positive piece of, you know, that negative experience, and to help them kind of reframe it. You know, witnesses speaking out against their attacker, you know, can become an empowering experience, not a scary one. Just as in family law matters, you know, taking control of the decisions you make in your life for yourself, for your children, can be very empowering.
I don't know. I have other friends that are in that law, and sometimes I see them, they're like, whoa, oh my gosh. And they're trying to spin it positively, but one of my friends said, can you have Stacy call me? I sometimes, which I know you understand it, I just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And she's also in family law.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's important to think about the long game. You know, while you're in it, like that particular day, that might be a hard day. That might be the day that you realize you're going to have to sell the house that you've lived in for years. Or the day you realize, you know, you have to share parenting with someone who's very difficult to get along with. But there's always the positive side of the situation. And that's when I talk about like the weeding and the gardening of it. You know, the way our thoughts like are composed in our minds, like they're like a tree. It's got like 3 parts to it. You know, it's like the informational part of your memory, and it's the emotional part of your memory, and it's the physical part of your memory. And in reworking those, in taking a step back and, you know, pruning, and this is where friends come into it, you know, that they can help you, you know, garden, and they can help you prune away like the bad parts like of that memory and put it back together in a more positive way.
I love that you mentioned women and friendships, because they're so important, and they're so important in my life. And I think that's where I met you. Was either I don't know if it was Walnut Club first or Fem City, but one of those organizations.
Yeah, I'm very active in both, so I can't quite remember either. But you brighten up every room.
Stacy, you know what? I have to tell them this story, and you're gonna crack up. But I never told you this. It's a good thing about you wanting to start a book club. So, all right, people. Here we go. Stacy forever wants to start book clubs because she reads a lot. And at one of the dinners, I don't know, you know, got brought up again. All right. Started, you know, she really wanted to have this once a month, blah, blah, blah. Well, nothing happened. Then we're at another event, and women are talking about different books they read. And Stacy, who's sitting next to me, who was also presenting at this event, I think it was Fem City, starts cross-referencing like 3 or 4 different books she read about the same topic. And I'm thinking, holy moly, I can't be in that book club. I'm like sitting here trying to remember one line from one book I just read last week. And there she is, cross-referencing different books and the same thing. And in this book, it was this and that. And then another woman across the table was going back at it. And I'm thinking, this woman is brilliant. I can never go in a book club with her, because I'm sitting there going, all right, let me just highlight this one section, and then I'll take pictures of it. But you blew me away with how much knowledge you have. I mean, how does one brain retain all that?
Well,
you know?
look, someone always has something to share that you can learn from, that I can learn from. That's why I said I'm,
Yes.
endlessly curious. And so even, I know you're
Well,
selling
I mean,
yourself
it was
short
pretty,
about what you could bring
I'm
to
good.
it.
I get a lot of other straits, but Dave, that's not one of them. It was like, this woman needs a book club. I mean, come on. Like, it's crazy. It was just amazing. And I was so impressed. But the other thing that you mentioned that's on a complete opposite side, because that fits your personality, always wanting to learn, always wanting to grow, always wanting to seek knowledge. And education and books is such a magical way. But help me with solving cold case homicides, because just looking at that gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, how do you do that? Like, oh my God, I don't even want, like, do you like looking at, corpses and stuff like that, or?
No, I wouldn't say I prefer it or it's something I enjoy figuring things out, the puzzle to things. But I was a prosecutor for 12 years. And, in my work with solving cold case homicides with the VDOC Society, one of our mottos is we give voice to the voiceless.
I like that. I like that.
And a really high percentage of the unsolved cold murders we get are women. And most of the time, and it's a really high percentage of female homicide victims are like 83% of the time or something very high. They've been murdered by someone they know.
So my son was just talking to me about this. I was watching some goofy show, and he goes, Mom, that's not real. Is it true that a lot of murders do go unsolved? Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Especially, in underserved communities where maybe the victim doesn't have a family, that reports that person missing right away. And so valuable clues, get lost in the delay in identifying a person. VDOC Society, we had a meeting last week, from a murder from decades ago, and that victim still hasn't been identified.
Yeah, that would be hard. Yeah, because you can't move on. So now it makes sense. I'm thinking you seek knowledge, you're constantly wanting to learn, and for me now I can see you want to solve something, right? And you want to bring some kind of peace to a horrible situation. Now it makes sense to me, Stacy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not that
no, I get it now.
Gruesome and a lover of.
No, hey, I liked gross anatomy. When I went to school, I could sit there and look at it and go, oh, that's fascinating, because I love following muscles and nerves, and it wasn't gory at all to me. So now it makes sense to me. All right, but you don't do that anymore, right? You said that. Why'd you change?
I don't do that anymore. Now I do family law. Why did I leave the DA's office, at the time that I did? I mean, that's a complicated question. I mean, I really, that might be a topic for another day. I really love my job and love, being in trial, being on court. I coach mock trial now for high school kids.
Well, that's fun.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, that's super fun. But, I just want to continue my mission of, building my knowledge base, and going into family law was yet another way to build my knowledge base somewhere else.
So in family law, I want to circle back to it. On an average day, they're asking, do you feel like you're making an impact? Like, does it feel positive to you?
It does. Because a lot of times people just want to be heard. So me, and I always make it a point of making myself accessible to my clients. If they want to talk to me, I will make time to talk to them, usually within 24 hours. I can do that. You know, I talk to them on the weekends. I talk to them in the evenings. I set boundaries. You know, sometimes, like especially if I have Fem City events or something, I'll say I'm not available at that time. But a lot of times they need reassurance. You know, that what, you know, the letter that we got from the opposing counsel, or, you know, the report they got back from their kid that they don't want to go over to the other parent's house anymore, or, you know, some kind of trauma or worry, you know, they need someone else to help them break that down. And because there's a tendency to, you know, overgeneralize and catastrophize, you know, when you're in that moment, because you're already in a traumatic state of thinking. So you're not processing your thoughts in a realistic way. You know, you're not able to see the long game at that point because you're stuck in the moment. So one of the coping ways that I've read about is when someone's in a moment like that is for them to close their eyes. And because our eyes are so keen at seeing detail, it's one of those situations where you can't see the forest for the trees. But if you close your eyes, then you can imagine.
Well, you know what? So simple, Stacy, and so powerful. I haven't thought about that in forever. Yeah. So another question they have for you. Do you interview? They're very interested in family law, by the way. Do you interview your clients before you take them on to see if they're a match?
I do a consultation with them, and I talk to them, and I see if I can help them. You know, because sometimes a good client is willing to listen to advice. And a good client is willing to help themselves. You know, they can't just drop a mess off on my doorstep and walk away. Like, they have to be involved in this with me too.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, those are key points for me, is that clients actually want to help the situation.
Okay, I have to. Did you ever have to fire a client?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm sure, because you took them on and then they weren't listening and taking your advice.
Right. I mean, and it's funny because I have the heart of a public servant, so I want to help everyone. And I'll take on a client, and I, in the consult, you know, I think it might be a problem. And then, you know, 2 weeks into it, I'm like, oh my God, yes, they're a problem. And it's hard because I don't want to say I can't help you, but you have to. You have to, because if it becomes an unproductive relationship, if they're not listening to me and they're doing things outside of, you know, how I've advised them, then it's not a productive relationship for either one of us. And it's not fair for me to continue to charge you money, you know, if you're not listening to me.
I like that you said that. All right, let's go back. I think there's some of our friends out there, but they want to know more about the friendship you built. And you have a statement here, so I'm going to read it. Women friendships with one another help them live longer and happier lives. It's my working theory. I love that, Stacy. Tell us a little bit more.
So, okay. Learning that having negative thoughts, you know, the buildup of those negative thoughts actually change your cellular structure. And they lead to inflammatory diseases such as cancer, pulmonary issues, and neurological issues. So having those types of unresolved trauma like kind of percolate in your body, you know, affects your body. And knowing that, okay, how do we do that? How do we repair like that cellular damage, you know, that we've been doing to ourselves and not resolving this trauma? Well, your girlfriends as, you know, the fellow gardeners of your soul, of your mind, they help you weed out those negative thoughts. You know, you come to an event and you say, well, I just feel like a failure. You know, and your girlfriend says, what are you talking about? You know, you run this company and you're so successful and you have beautiful children and a husband who loves you and, you know, whatever it is, that all the successes in your life that you can't see in that moment, they help you kind of rework that. Or they tell you that whatever you're feeling a failure about isn't actually a failure. They help you rework that memory that you have of that failure. And there's this, in this one book I was reading, talked about the art of doing that, of kind of reworking your memories to make them more positive. And they compared it like to the Japanese art of kintsugi.
Probably not.
I'm probably saying it wrong. But it's when they repair broken pottery with dustings of gold or silver so that you see where the break is, but they've highlighted how beautiful that break is. You know, that now that piece of pottery has a little bit of beauty to it that's been added by the break.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah, isn't that a great idea? And so thinking about that, you know, how putting yourself back together, you know, makes you more beautiful inside. You know, that you're still showing your cracks, you know, but you're proud of them. Instead of
I love that view. I'm going to have to get more information on that. I love that. Yeah.
I just thought it was such a cool idea, and that, you know, we help each other do that all the time.
You know.
And so I think all the meetings, you know, all your support networks with the people in your life, they're cleansing your body of those, you know, toxic cells.
You know, Stacy, I think we both are, but you're very fortunate to be in groups and surrounded by people that hold that space for us when we can't hold it for ourselves and lift us up. And we talk so much about who are the people. Some people say, who are the 5 people? Who are the people surrounding you on a daily basis? Take a look at that, because that's really going to impact your life. And if there are those people that, you know, bring you down, not that you want to get rid of them, but you may want to keep them at arm distance. I say love them from a distance. You know, love them from a distance, then free. But
well, and then you can also change your perspective on that person. You know, because the phrase like hurt people hurt people.
Ooh,
you know?
Yes. Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
So someone might, you know, continually kind of cut you down or make comments, you know, that are hurtful to you. But then if you can step back for a second, and think about, well, why are they saying that really? You know, is it really because my hair looks terrible today, or is it that they just want to feel better in some way, and they're so hurt they can't see the positive around them. And so they fixate on the negative little details. And so if you can give someone like that some grace, you know, and maybe instead of cutting them out of your life, you know, asking them, are you okay?
Yeah. Good point. So I think for me, it's more about, there are those people, like you said, you can understand, you can come from compassion, empathy, kindness, of understanding where they are, but then decide, is it just a moment, or are they that way, and you have to just release them a little, like love them, but not have them in your life. Because there were many times I understood, Stacy, why they were the way they are, so I kept them in my life and made excuses for them. But it was wearing on me. But sometimes, like you said, I love that you pointed it out. By talking to them and letting them know what they're doing, you might even just change the relationship. And they may not even be aware that they're, oh my God, I would never want to do that, right?
Yeah, like if you say to them, do you realize that every time you've seen me over the last year, you tell me something negative?
I love that.
And and they
good
might
point,
not
Stacy.
know that.
Good point. All right, I want to dive in because we believe it or not, I told you it was going to go fast. There's only 5 minutes left. So dive into, I have to because we're getting so many questions, and I know this is going to be hard for you. But what are some favorite books? They want to know if she's so knowledgeable about so many books. We need some books to read. What has she got going on recently? What can she recommend?
Well, like any lawyer would say, it depends. And um, so, I mean, I have my house, my living room divided up into sections, like my own little personal library of whatever I feel like reading. Like I have a historical fiction section. I have like a supernatural section. I have my classics section that has, my Hemingway, my Fitzgerald, my Edith Wharton, that stuff. I have my nonfiction section that has like all my psychology reads. And then I have another nonfiction section that's kind of more history and, more healthy living, like diet and exercise. So let's see. I just read not too long ago How to Sell a Haunted House, which was a really fun book to read, like very enjoyable and such a page turner. And I would bet money that it's going to get adapted, like by Netflix or Hulu. It was about a brother and a sister that have just lost their parents, and they need to figure out what to do with their house, but it's haunted. And so it's got some humor, it's got a little bit of horror, but it also has, surprisingly, like some family trauma, where they kind of have to talk through like the emotional issues in their family that maybe contributed to what's going on in the house.
Look at this. That's a book I never would have thought you mentioned. All right. So they do have a topic for you. How about if you just want to read a juicy book and not think?
Well, let's see. I call those books like my brain candy. So, I mean, How to Sell a Haunted House was pretty much in that category, like fun and like not that deep, and not like super gory or anything like that, like just kind of fun. Let's see, I'm looking around my room like to think about what fun books do I have.
Well, I have another question too. Well, if you can't think of that, we'll come back to that. They want to know any biography that you've read that you really enjoyed.
I love Cary Grant's biography. He was such an interesting man and pretty progressive for his time. For example, he insisted that the character actors and extras, like in a movie he was shooting, that they be ethnically appropriate. And it was something that, most major Hollywood stars weren't really paying attention to that. And, he's one of the actors that helped kind of break the studio system, that kind of walked away from the studio and made himself a free agent. And what another little fun fact I learned from his biography was that he loved champagne and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches together.
I love fun facts like that.
And it's such a fun fact because the saltiness of the peanut butter helps bring out the champagne flavor. Like they enhance each other. And who would have thought that? I didn't even think about that before I read that fact in his book, which I just think is a great fact.
So forget that we did get a fun brain one, and we got a biography. They want a historic.
Ooh. So I love Eric Larson for nonfiction, like history. So he wrote Devil in the White City, which is one of my favorite. Also, what's it called?
I'm writing these down for my husband, by the way, because he loves historic books. Go ahead.
So that book was fantastic. It was about the last American ambassador to Germany before the outbreak of World War II. And at that time, Germany had been so weakened by World War I that no one really took that post seriously. So he was kind of put in that position as a favor, to the president's friend. And he was a professor. He wasn't a diplomat. And so he goes over to Germany with his family, and he sees what's developing in 1930s Germany. And he's telegraphing back, to the White House, like, you have to pay attention to what's going on here. I mean, he was jumping up and down, and no one was listening to him on the other side of the ocean. And meanwhile, he was putting his family in grave danger by being a voice against what he was seeing. So that book was
Stacy, I don't know how many of these books I'm going to read, but I could listen to you describe these books all night long. Like, I want to come over and sit in your house and just look at all your books, and I want to pick one out of the case and go, what about this, Stacy? And hear you tell me about it, because it's so compelling. Like, okay, I want to read that book. All right, before we go, have you always loved books? Have you always loved books? Okay.
Yes. So when I went to kindergarten at the age of 5, I could read. I could read books, but I couldn't tie my shoes. And
mine was the opposite.
So that's kind of the pattern of my life. Like the fine motor skills, not so much. But
and
knowledge, it runs
how many books do you read a week, a month?
I don't know. Like, I always have a book. I have a book on my phone. I usually have a home book and an away book. Like a bigger hardbound book that I keep at home, and then a smaller one that I can like stick in my purse. So if I get stuck waiting in line somewhere, I read. And that's again about choosing how to spend your energy. I'm not going to like play Candy Crush or some mindless game on my phone when I have a little downtime. I'm going to take in some knowledge.
Oh my God, I love it. And by the way, once you start describing your books, well, I got them in this area, and then I got the self-help, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen that. Like, this is somebody who really does love books and seeks knowledge. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. All right, are you in any book clubs? I just need to know.
I'm in a historical fiction
Thank God.
club. And love those ladies. And we are also, really excellent gardeners for each other in terms of helping to support each other. Usually, the first half hour or so is just spent updating each other on our lives and, being there for each other.
Yeah, it's more than just the books. All right, Stacy, we got to wrap up. But before we go, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. I loved it. I could sit here and ask you about another book, and then another book, and then another book. But if they do want to use your services because you started something new, how can they find you?
You can reach out to me. You can at me here at S Forchetti, but you can also, my email address is sforchetti@lentolawgroup.com.
Yeah, it's a new adventure for you. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Find me there.
All right, hey, I got something to say. Don't worry if you missed the beginning or you weren't able to watch it. After we're done, I will record it, and I'll put it on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And Stacy and I would really appreciate it if you shared it and liked it. You know what I'm going to say. Thank you, Stacy, and until next time, toodles.
Bye. Bye, Sandy.